and I'm hitting the live button. All right, everybody, it's 12 noon on October 6th. This is a Wednesday. You're on Lunch Conversations with Randy and Teddy. And for those of you who are clear about what Randy looks like, you can see Randy is not on the screen. On the screen today, we have Mr. Greg Jones. Greg, would you go ahead, tell everybody who you are, buddy?
Hey everyone, good afternoon. Thank you again for the invite, for having me, Teddy. My name is Greg Jones. I specialize in organizational development and leadership coaching on one-on-one and also individual levels. So happy to work with the inspiring leaders, people who want to hone their leadership skills and people who want to develop new ones.
Yeah, cool. And Greg's a good friend, and Greg showed up and has filled in a few times when Randy went AWOL, or I think maybe, did you fill in for me when I went AWOL one time? So
I know you have. You guys got to change the locks. It's too easy for me to get in.
Yeah. But Randy's off at Leadership Winston-Salem. And so those who don't know me, I'm Teddy Burriss, LinkedIn strategist, trainer, and coach. And usually I point in the right-hand corner and go take a look at what I say. I'm a LinkedIn strategist. But today I'm off site. I'm in another city, in another state. So a little bit about me. I run a company called Burriss Consulting. We're LinkedIn strategists, trainers, and coaches. We teach LinkedIn as a business tool. We teach Sales Navigator. We teach prospecting. Absolutely love doing the work we do. But today it's noon on Wednesday. We're doing Lunch Conversations with Randy and Teddy, and our special guest today from around the world, from Israel, is Mr. Jacob Scher. And Jacob's a good guy. He jumped in, said, Teddy, let's have a conversation. Jacob's a job search expert. He does a lot of blogging. He's pretty creative. He's all about building community and often using humor to help him get there. He sort of kind of likes people, which plays well for what we do here. And he's created a really popular job board called Job Mob back in 2007. Jacob, good to have you on here, buddy. Introduce yourself to everybody a little better than I just did.
Oh, well, that was actually pretty good. Thank you very much, Teddy. And Greg, it's a pleasure to meet you too. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here and looking forward to talking with everybody today. Just a quick shout out to my friend, longtime recruiter of HT Prof, Todd Porter, who I know is listening, and he's on here as well. Thanks to him, I'm here today. He's the one who introduced us. Yeah. So that's great. As for me, I started Job Mob back in 2007. Started off as a job search blog, helping people around the world, mainly professionals. As you said, it's become quite popular, and job search can be really, really tough, and it can really be depressing, frankly. And there's a lot of things about it that can be pretty funny. And so, I try to add in a lot of humor to educate people while keeping things light and making it more memorable. And really looking forward again to speaking with everybody today.
Cool. So those of you who are regulars, you know how we do this. We got 16,000 people on the call right now. We're live streaming to Facebook. We're live streaming to LinkedIn. We'll upload to YouTube. If you have questions, then use the chat box and Greg will monitor the chat. Greg, are you going to monitor Q&A or just the chat?
I will do my best to monitor both. So if you've got a question, put it in the comments, or you can put it up in Q&A, and I will make sure it gets answered.
Greg is far more gracious than Randy is. So good. So this ought to be a lot of fun. So Jacob, the conversation today is about getting back to the basics. This is often we get wrapped up in all this newfangled technology crap, what's it called? LinkedIn and Facebook and, all this other stuff. We get wrapped up in these new tools and we sort of lose focus of the basics. Yeah. So that's where we're going to go with this today. So do you see challenges that people are having losing track of the basics?
Well, absolutely. I see people doing things in both extremes. In other words, I see people who go completely overboard because they're seeing all these blog articles and YouTube videos saying you've got to be on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and everything. And then people on the complete other side who they're overwhelmed by it. They won't even touch it. And they're missing out on the minimal amount that they should be doing.
Yeah. Interesting. This morning, I sent a message to a guy and asked him, I wanted to buy something from him. He says, oh, great. And we put it together. I said, hey, can I Venmo you or PayPal you? He says, I don't know what those are.
Yeah.
Now I get it, maybe Venmo, but PayPal anyway. I'm being facetious. So look, let's talk about this. So there's lots of things that processes we've used, and I get it. Not everybody has been through job search before. There's probably a lot of people who've had 20 and 30-year careers and never really did job search, never really looked for a job.
Yeah,
But
great.
there's a lot
Lucky.
of us who have been through it. So how do we look back and discover what worked and what we should get back to? Any thoughts?
Oh yeah, I mean, typically when someone who hasn't been on a job search for a long time, all of a sudden they're thrown into it. So they say, okay, well, last time I just wrote up a CV, I sent it out to a few places, and eventually I got a job. Or someone referred me, and that's how I got my job. That's usually one of those two, right?
Yeah.
Nowadays, those things do work. You will need a CV usually, or a resume. And if you can get a referral, that's still fantastic. But the fact is, you depending on what kind of job you're looking for, there are some additional steps that you really should be taking. Yeah. And so you got to research, and that's why you come to calls like this and listen to people like us talking about it. If you're a professional, then you have to be on LinkedIn. Of all the social networks, that's the most important one. If you don't have people that you're networking with on a regular basis, people who don't know you, people that you don't impress with your expertise, then that's something you should be thinking about how to do that. Because again, referrals, it's such an easy way of getting a job. People trust who they know. And so you want people to know you.
Yeah. And that's huge. And in today's climate, I'm going to use that word without a better word in mind. In today's climate, or the climate for the last 10 years, referrals have been so important because of that fact that 70% of all jobs are not listed on job boards. So,
right.
Yeah, I'll see.
Yeah, we call those hidden jobs.
Yeah, all the hidden jobs. So I apologize. I think my internet was a little wonky just now, but I think we're back. So looking at what worked and looking at what works for others is an important part. And you use the phrase research. Hey, let's talk about that networking a little bit deeper, Jacob.
Yeah.
So, it freaks a lot of people out to do networking, but it's pretty important. Any thoughts on how people can look at that, and maybe some thoughts on how those who are not thrilled about networking, how they could use it?
Yeah. So with the thing with networking, the people who do it often do it incorrectly. Networking is about meeting people, right? Just meeting people. Helping each other out is a good way of networking. Not everyone thinks about that when they're doing it. Usually, especially when it's on a job search, people are saying to you, got to go network. They say, okay. And so they start to meet people. And the first thing out of their mouth is, I'm looking for a job. So in other words, help me, help me, help me. Well, that's basically a kind of spam, right? It's much better if you speak to somebody you've never met before and you're looking for ways to help them. They'll say, wow, I've never met this person, but they're so giving. I mean, I want to reciprocate. I want to give back to them. How can I help you? You're trying to help me. How can I help you? Instead of coming across right away, being aggressive and wanting something from them right away. Okay. So that's a really important underlying idea that you have to keep in mind when you're networking, which networking is just meeting people. So it could be physically meeting people. That was tough during the pandemic, as we all know, but now things are opening up again. And so hopefully you're starting to see meetings, networking events. There could be conferences. It could even just be like local, church events or something. Whatever you've got going on in your community, it doesn't even have to be specific to your industry. Just go talk to people. Discover what's going on in the community, and it'll naturally come out of you that, you're looking for a job, or you're about to look for a job, and this is how you can help the people around you. And then people will want to reciprocate because they say, oh, wow, this is a great person to meet and to know. How can I help them as well? So that's offline networking. And then, of course, online networking, well, we have social media and so forth, but ultimately the idea is the same. You want to present yourself in a positive way, trying to help other people so that they will reciprocate to you, as opposed to being aggressive and asking for things right off the bat.
Yeah, that's important. I refer to that as leading with give.
Yeah.
Way more powerful to lead with give than to lead with I need.
Yeah. And people, it doesn't have to be complicated. In other words, let's say if you're an accountant who's looking to join an accounting firm. So you can go online, for example, go to a website where you see people discussing their accounting firms, so the companies they work for, and you can just reach out to people and you say, listen, I see that you guys, if you look at their website, you can see what they're working on or who their clients are, and you can just reach out and say, listen, I worked with someone like that, or I worked with them before. I see the kinds of projects you're working on. I've done something similar. Perhaps you want to meet for coffee, and we can talk shop about that kind of a project or those kinds of clients type of thing. Yeah. Be very informal about it.
It's just two humans talking.
Yeah.
Why does it need to be more grandiose than that?
It really doesn't. But the thing about networking, though, I get that conversation starters makes people nervous. It's not always easy to just walk up to people and to introduce yourself. It's people want instant gratification, and with networking, it's really not what you're looking for. You want to build your network for when you need it. So it's tough, going back to what I said earlier on the job search, to just be asking for things of people that you've never met before. If you had started building that network before, months before, even years before, then when you actually need something from them, i.e. a new job, they'd be happy to help, because over the years, you guys got to know each other, you helped them, they helped you, et cetera, et cetera. And so now there's no barrier there anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good stuff. So, hey, Greg, anything on chat that we need to catch up on?
Sure. I got a question from Lisa for Jacob. What is your take on video resumes? I hear this is a growing trend on TikTok.
Yeah. It's interesting. Video resumes are not new. They've been around for well over a decade now. It's interesting who's promoting video resumes. Often you'll see that it's companies who make video resumes that are pushing this. Many recruiters do not like them, especially in the corporate world, because they don't have the tools to quickly go through them. So, for example, recruiters in the corporate world will often use software called an ATS, an applicant tracking system, to scan incoming resumes for certain keywords, so that they can very easily find those candidates when they're looking for someone to fill a role. And that's a lot harder to do with video, unless you have really, really high-end, innovative ATSs that can get the text out of a video. So in general, recruiters, they don't have time to look through videos, to watch all these videos that people are sending in. So there isn't much appreciation for them on that level. However, where a video resume can be useful is if you, as a job seeker, you have your own website, or it could be on social media as well. You put a video about yourself. You put your elevator pitch, basically, a 1 to 2 minute video about who you are, what's great about you, the kinds of companies that you love to work for, and then it's always there. If someone wants to dive deeper, they can go and watch that video only for a couple of minutes, right? It doesn't have to be a 1 hour long introspective on your family's family tree, but just 1 or 2 minutes. And that it's there to introduce you to a potential recruiter. A recruiter will, once they get a name that interests them, they're going to Google that name. And if you have a video about yourself on YouTube, you have your own website, you have on LinkedIn, and you have all these results that will come up in the Google search result, then yeah, that's something that will help for sure.
Yeah. I as a content creator, I know that I have to give the viewer or the reader what they want. Yeah. But I also know that I have to support that with other types of content scattered out to different places. YouTube, LinkedIn, even Facebook and Twitter. I mean, they're going to go hunt you down on social media. Hopefully they're going to hunt down and find something that's intriguing and relevant to them. Hey, so let's talk about something that I have, one of my pet peeves, Jacob. Overemphasizing our experience. I see this all the time, in that 30-second commercial, in that intro statement, in that about statement, in that summary statement, in that objective statement on resumes. It's like, all this experience. I'm all about this. Is that the right way to do it?
Well, listen, when you're talking about a company trying to bring on new clients, they want the clients to know that we've been in this business for 100 years or more. That's pretty impressive. But when you're talking about a job seeker who's trying to convince someone to hire them, well, the company is really more concerned with what you've done lately. What kind of results have you achieved recently? And so you may have been great. You may have peaked 25 years ago, but we need a job done now. And so we really care about what you've done the past few years that is relevant to what we need to be done. And so you got to be really, really careful, especially if you're an older job seeker, like I would be. I mean, I'm over 40. And so if I have, let's say, more than a decade of experience, I'm not going to be able to mention all of that on my resume. It's just not possible. And it doesn't make it doesn't make sense to do so. You're really going to want to focus on the recent things that you've done. You can bring things up in an interview, but when time is short and you've got a one-page resume, let's say, to impress someone with, then you really got to focus on the big achievements that you've accomplished recently.
Yeah, and in that 30-second commercial, one of my pet peeves is a 30-second commercial should only be 17 seconds. And it needs to be clearly who I am, not how I'm able to do it all, but instead very focused on who am I. And I've been working on this for years, and I just think it's impactful. I only got your attention for 17 seconds. You're not paying attention to me for 30 seconds.
Yeah.
You're quickly going up, your mind's going somewhere else. So let me get it.
Yeah, it's even worse with resumes, right? The classic thing is that recruiters only give your resume 6 to 7 seconds of decision time before they go any further, right? So there's even less time there for a decision to be made, an impression to be made.
Yeah, absolutely. So Greg, anything, any thoughts?
Yes, I've got a question from Dean. How do you get recent experience or accomplishments if you're going through a gap?
Oh, well, wait, so there's a lot of things you can do. That's a great question, by the way. Comes up a lot.
Yeah, we pay Dean to show up with questions.
So when you're between jobs and you want to stay current, there's a lot of things you can do. First of all, you can promote yourself on your own website, on social media. You can start answering questions on websites, whether it's in Facebook groups that are relevant to your industry, LinkedIn groups. You can go on Quora, create a profile, start answering questions there. Okay. You can volunteer, whether volunteering physically for an organization that needs your skills, or you can go online and volunteer. And what I mean by that is you can do informal volunteering. I'll give you an example. If you're an interior designer, for example, then you could spend some time going around YouTube, leaving comments on videos, commenting what you see behind people, how they can improve their studio, right? That puts you out there. Now you want to be a bit more directed. So you're going to want to try to focus on who could potentially hire you. That's the people you would most want to impress with your skills. But yeah, those are all things that you can do to show that you have expertise. Now, in terms of getting experience, well, we normally say that experience means that you are being paid, right? You got to be paid to call it work experience. Well, you can freelance. In fact, everybody, whether you're a job seeker or you're an employee, should be consulting. You should be a freelance consultant all the time. Everybody should have a business card or a virtual business card, like a personal website that you can easily send to someone or hand out to someone saying, I would love to help you. I'd love to advise you on what you just mentioned to me. Let's chat. Let's have a call, whatever. And it doesn't even have to be for pay initially, but yes, it could lead to paid work. Absolutely. If you impress someone that you can really help them the way that you claim, then yeah, you can do that. I see one of the things that people don't appreciate enough as a job seeker is that it's so easy to lose confidence because you're in this mode of sending out your CVs and getting rejected or not getting responses. Whereas if you spend half your time answering people's questions, then you stay fresh, you stay current, and you feel good. You're helping people. It keeps your spirits up. It keeps your confidence up, and you're ready when the money's on the line, right? When you actually go into an interview and people need to ask you something where there's actually something, there's skin in the game there, right? And so it really is important to spend. I do advise people to spend up to half their time doing this on a daily basis, okay? Because you want to keep your confidence up. But as I mentioned, there's a lot of things you can do to keep getting experience while you're between jobs. Freelance marketplaces is another place to look for work, and you can actually see people who are posting projects respond, not necessarily trying to get the paid gig, but just giving them as much advice as possible based on what they propose as a project. Just give it to them and see how they react. It's a great way of sounding off against potential employers. And if they see that you're giving them so much free advice, well, your paid advice must be that much better, right? So yeah, another great thing to do.
I love that, Jacob. You just gave me a whole nother idea for another conversation, blog post or video. So go to YouTube and comment on YouTube videos that are relevant to the skill that you have, relevant to the industry you have, et cetera, et cetera. Go to Quora. So those who know me know I'm all over Quora, Quora.com. Go answer questions on Quora relevant to who you are and what you do. Go to Reddit and get into subreddits and answer questions and engage on conversations and subreddits. By the way, YouTube, Quora, and Reddit are highly indexed sites, which means if someone types in a question in Google and that question's on Reddit, YouTube, or Quora, your stuff may very well pop up in a Google search. So yeah, good point. Jump into good conversations where you can, YouTube, Quora, Reddit, Medium, Tumblr, LinkedIn, et cetera, et cetera. So good stuff. I like that. Greg, anybody?
Sure. I have another question from Angela, and her question is, I've been downsized several times. In the meantime, I would take a contract job for 3 months, 6 months, 15 months to keep busy, learn new software along with applying my skills. I've had these contract jobs on my resume. However, during an interview, my resume looks as if I've job hopped. I try to explain that I haven't, but they don't tend to believe me. How can they address that?
Good question. The fact is, listen, you can't lie. You shouldn't lie about what you've done. Okay. If you just leave out all that contract jobs, you're going to give yourself a gap, and that's going to raise even more questions. At least you were working, right? So I wouldn't leave it off, but I would be selective. In other words, you can say that you were freelance consulting during that period of time, and just list the projects that are relevant to the job you're applying for. In other words, you don't have to include every contract as a separate job. You would say, no, I was consulting. Okay, that was the job. I was consulting. Mm-hmm. And here are the projects that are relevant to the position I'm applying for.
Yeah. So wrap it all up under one position.
That's right.
And just list under that position the 4 or 5 different contract jobs that you did.
Yeah.
They're relevant. Yeah. Good point. I get that. So how about, here's another one. I don't have this problem, but a lot of people think they do have this problem. Ageism.
Okay.
You know, I know, by the way, I'm not trying to be cavalier. I know it's real. I absolutely know it's real. I'm the 63-year-old social media strategist. Get me? I mean, I get it. You know, we all have to deal with this. What's a good thought or good idea or perspective of how to deal with ageism, Jacob?
Yeah. So ageism is one of the most common, but not by far the only way that job seekers is discriminated against. There's also ageism in the other sense. In other words, you have young job seekers who are discriminated against because they're considered to be too young for their position. But ultimately, I like to group all these different kinds of discrimination, even racism is obviously another one, together. You as the job seeker, on the one hand, it's too easy to wonder why you weren't hired or why you weren't retained for a follow-up interview or whatever, and to put it as a form of discrimination. Oh, they obviously thought I was too old or something like that. It's too easy to give that excuse for what happened. Okay, you might be right? But it's too easy. Okay, don't go there. Honestly, don't go there. What you should do is, when you're job searching, you can go do a little bit of research. We can go a little bit deeper into this, but you do a little bit of research. For example, on LinkedIn, you can usually see employees at that company. Is there anybody there with a similar profile to yours? Now, does that, whether it's older job seekers, or there are people there who have been working there for many years, et cetera, et cetera. Anybody who has a similar profile to yours, that is the closest thing you can get to proof that this company is willing to hire people like you. Okay. If you see people like that, that is a very good sign that if you apply to that company, you're not going to be rejected for ageism, for example, because they've already proven that they will hire people like you. You've got to do a bit of research to do that. That's really the best way you can protect yourself from that kind of thing happening. It's not bulletproof. Okay. It really isn't, because ultimately you could be coming down to just one recruiter, and that recruiter wasn't there when the other person was hired or whatever. it's again, it's not healthy to believe that you were discriminated against. Okay, but the best thing you can do is research the companies that you apply for and try to apply to companies who are most likely to want to hire you. And this is just one aspect of understanding why they would want to hire you.
Yeah, I use a philosophy in my career coaching that 30% of your time in job search needs to be research. And
yeah, I advise people. People like to say that job search is a numbers game. For professionals, honestly, if you try as hard as you can, you should really be aiming to apply to as few companies as possible. All right. And if you're really a hotshot, you won't have to apply to anybody because you've been doing such a good job building your personal brand that when you announce that you're available for a new opportunity, people will jump to hire you.
Which is exactly why right here today publicly, I am not announcing that I'm looking for a job.
All right, offers, make it rain, make it rain.
Make it rain. Greg, do you have something, buddy?
Sure. I've got a comment and then a question. The first one is, I know our good friend Randy actually wrote a column on this and put it on YouTube about ageism and self-fulfilling prophecies and how to work around them. So if you haven't already, if you're not following Randy, please do so because it's a really good article. Yeah. But I do have a question from Don. Don says, employment is hard on your finances. How do you put a positive spin on part-time work that is low income and not particularly challenging? The truth, I need money, man. I need to be fully employed now.
Yeah. Again, a very, very common question. So on the one hand, okay, you need to take, when you are, let's say you're laid off, all right? So one of the first things you should do is, yes, take stock of your situation. That involves, of course, your finances. How long can you go before you need to drastically change your situation? In other words, how long can you go before you need to get desperate and just take anything that comes your way because you need to pay the bills so much? So that's something you have to estimate. But let's say you've gotten to that point where, okay, it's not happening for whatever reason. And yeah, the bills need to be paid. So what do? Well, then you say, okay, what's the best paying job that I can get that is available that won't require jumping through hoops? In other words, something that's, you see wanted ads locally just by walking down to the nearest mall or something, for example, or walking to the nearest industrial area and just going to offices and saying, listen, what kinds of people are you guys looking for these days, etc. Okay. So on the one hand, people will see just the fact that you're a hard worker, you're putting yourself out there. People will appreciate that. They really, really will. And they'll want to talk to you and see, okay, well, what can you actually do? What can you bring to the table here? And that can ultimately lead to a job that really is a career job. At the same time, let's say, if I understand your question correctly, let's say you are actually working in a lower, not a career job. You have taken a job that is not a career job for you because yes, you have bills to pay and you haven't been able to find a career job yet. So you have to do this in the meantime and have your job search on the side. So listen, the fact is that when you get to an interview and people wonder what you're doing, then yes, you say, I have bills to pay, just like you. When you're running a business, there are costs that need to be handled. They need to be paid, and so I'm doing what I need to do to pay my bills while I'm job searching. And it's honestly, it's a completely legitimate thing to do. And I know that I, as a recruiter, as an employer, I would value that. I value people who can adapt, who recognize a situation needs to be dealt with, and they do what it takes to deal with the situation. Other people, they will just sit at home, they'll freeze up, they won't know what to do, things will steadily get worse and worse and worse, their confidence will be dwindling, they will be having more and more anxiety, it's going to downward spiral. In other words, if they can get a job interview, they will be so stressed about it that the interview is unlikely to go well, which means that they're going to be even more stressed afterwards. So yes, if you can absolutely adapt and you can take a necessary job to keep things going, you absolutely should do that. It'll also give you confidence because you'll be dealing with people on a daily basis. It'll keep your spirits up. It'll allow you to network and potentially meet other recruiters or employers. So good on you for doing that. Absolutely. You get done what needs to be done.
Yeah. Greg may remember a friend of ours years ago, Steve was his first name. And Steve was, highly sought after at one point, project management professional. And Steve lost his job and he needed revenue. He went to, I think it was Chick-fil-A.
Sure.
He went to a retail site. And another lady by the name of Nancy Nancy was, making good money, lost her job. She was in transition, and Nancy also went to Chick-fil-A. Steve also, he started bidding on storage units and on, auctioning, and he would sell storage unit stuff on eBay. The point is that you do what you got to do to generate revenue while you're looking for that next great place that you want to be. Absolutely. Yeah. So,
but it's a good question. It's important to know how to talk about it, how to sell what you're accomplishing. Absolutely.
Yeah. I see Greg's bosses in the office. So you didn't tell me she was in the office, man.
This is a surprise inspection. I wasn't. I had to be ready.
Tell her that you and I are doing good things together.
Teddy wants you to know we're doing good things together. I have a question for you, Teddy.
All right, buddy.
That came to the Q&A. So
I saw that.
So that follows up here with Jacob, following up what you just talked about. So when you're job searching and you're feeling the wolves nipping at your heels, how do you not appear to be desperate when you're just, trying to keep them at bay?
Well, it really comes down to how you feel. If you feel desperate, you're going to appear desperate. It's as simple as that. You want to do everything you can to avoid becoming desperate. Most job seekers, when they get to that first job interview process that seems to be moving well, they start closing off other options and say, oh, I got a good feeling about this. I got a really good feeling about this. And then if a job offer actually comes their way, well, they only have that one offer. They have no negotiation leverage because they need a job, and here there's an offer, so they feel compelled to take it. And that's why so many people are miserable in their jobs, because they took the only job offer that came their way. And if they had multiple offers because they kept searching while they were negotiating or even being interviewed by this company, they would have had other things and they would have felt much more comfortable. You know what? I don't need this. I've got a better thing potentially over here. Or you tell company A, I have company B making me an offer as well. Your offer is a bit low. Maybe you would consider something different. And you can feed off each other. But if you're not even at that stage yet, in other words, you're not even getting interviews yet. Okay, so you're starting to feel desperate because things are not going well. Well, you know what? You can reach out on chats like this and ask. Tell us your situation, and we'll try to understand why things are not going well. Is it because you're not looking for jobs in the right places? Is it because you're not applying to the right companies? Is it because your resume is not working? Is it because your resume has mistakes and you don't even realize it? What is it? What is the obstacle that you haven't been able to get over and you haven't realized it? There's an issue. We see this all the time, not just in job search, but people, we have intimacy issues. Okay. When something is in front of us constantly, strangely enough, we start to not see all of it. That's why, for example, when you have a resume that needs to be proofread, you've been spending hours on your resume. You're thinking, this is great. This is great. One person comes along and within a minute, they see a spelling mistake. Well, why didn't you see that, right? You spent hours. Well, it's because you became so comfortable, so intimate with that document that you can read through it quickly and you don't even notice. It's like those email forwards where they give you a paragraph of words, and all the words, the first letter and the last letter, every word is correct, but the middle letters are all switched up, and you find that you can actually read the text, right? The same thing with a resume. It looks right, and you've seen it, but because you've been spending so much time looking at it, you missed the little things. You really need an outside opinion that can set you straight. And sometimes it's really, really obvious. So when you sense that you're starting to feel desperate, that's really a sign, okay, I really need to get a second and maybe even a third opinion about what's going on here.
Yeah. Hey, you're on Lunch Conversations with Randy and Teddy. Randy is on hiatus today as he is embarking on a Leadership Winston-Salem engagement. So we're happy that he's out there participating in the community. Our special sub co-host today is Mr. Greg Jones, all the way from Statesville, North by God, Carolina. And our special guest today is Jacob Scher, all the way from Israel, to share with us in conversations about getting back to the basics in job search. So this is good dialogue. Jacob, appreciate it. I'm going to forego some of my questions and go back to the audience questions because they're much better than mine. So Greg, you got another question?
Sure. I got another question from Don for Jacob. Just he's curious, how good are HR professionals who are unemployed and have not been in a job search in a year or so? The shoe's now on their foot. How do you wrestle with that?
You know, it's I mean, it's I was going to say it's funny. It's not. It's sad, but I used to think that salespeople should be the best job seekers because they spend all their time selling stuff, right? But it actually goes back to what I was just saying about intimacy. It's a lot easier for them to sell someone else's things than to sell themselves. They don't see their imperfections as well as other people will. And then, in fact, often they don't even see their achievements as well as other people do. In fact, that's usually more glaring, is that you'll speak to people and they say, okay, well, what have you achieved recently? And you're like, well, I don't know. I've been working on this and that. But then someone else who knows what you've been doing say, what are you talking about? This was great and that was great. Because people don't always feel the reaction to what they've accomplished. It takes other people who are impressed by it. They're much better at recommending what you've done, right? Which is why sometimes it's really great to network with a co-pilot, with a wingman type of thing. Yeah, but just in terms of HR professionals specifically, so you know what? They're job seekers just like anybody else. They have the advantage of understanding a lot better what takes place on the other side of the table. They are also much more likely to have contacts on that side of the table, right? So they'll have people to reach out to. However, there are sometimes people who view them as competitors. It really depends on what kind of an HR professional they are. Are you asking because you're an HR professional? I'm curious.
Don or myself?
That came from Don, I think.
Don, yes.
So, hey, Greg, I want to take Lisa's question and
Sure.
and reposition that, because I think there's another way to ask that would be more applicable to everybody. You know, Lisa asked, you know, is there a way to question who the subject matter experts are who are involved in your job search and who are reviewing you? I want to rephrase that, if you'll allow me, Lisa. So, you know, is there a way to determine who are the people who are involved in the process as you're starting and going through the process? What do you think, Jacob?
Do you mean at a company, at a hiring company? Like who's the decision maker?
Start with, you know, who's the first person who, you know, I talk to, who's the next person I talk to, rather than just talking to a talking head and not knowing who they are.
Okay, so this, yeah, not trivial. It's a good question. People usually want to know who the hiring decision manager is. In other words, who's the person I most need to impress to get this job? And people don't usually put on a LinkedIn profile hiring decision maker. It doesn't usually work that way. One of the things that I highly recommend when you're researching a company to apply to is don't only research by going to their website or looking at their social media, okay? Try to talk to employees. You can do that through social media. You can reach out to employees on social media saying, listen, you know, we went to the same school, or we were from the same town, or look for something in common. I see that you're working at this company. I'm wondering if it's a good fit for me. What can you tell me about them? That's a great way to start a conversation with someone inside, okay? Someone internal. They may have a better idea of who you would actually need to talk to, who would that hiring decision maker be, or who's the recruiter that's in charge of the hiring campaign. And then they may want to send your CV internally. Ideally, you should actually never email your CV to anyone. It should always be a third party sending your CV to someone. That's really the thing you should strive to do. Always look for someone who can hand in your CV internally. However, just to add on to that, when you're doing your company research, and this keeps coming back, you see how high I am on this. This is so important. You should also use LinkedIn to find ex-employees, okay? Ex-employees may have an axe to grind, but they're also much more likely to be free with their words about a company. There are things that they will be willing to say that employees will not say, for good and for bad. So you have to be careful with it, but it is a good way to get information that could still be current, but that an employee won't give you. And also, many ex-employees are still in touch with their former employer or former colleagues, and they as well can just send you, refer your CV or your resume to someone internal as well. And so, and LinkedIn is really good for that, because LinkedIn will be able to give you who worked at a company based on their job history, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you. A lot of ex-employees still have relationships with, you know, their fellow employees, and maybe even with that organization, because I would think the majority of people who leave a company do not leave with sour grapes. Is that the right word?
Oh.
Yeah. Greg, anything on the Q&A?
Oh, I got Q&A. So I have a good question here that from Dean. It said, so how do you work with generational differences when you're talking to a recruiter who might be older or younger than you? What are some suggestions for getting around that?
Yeah. Okay. So that's a good question as well. Listen, if you are an older job seeker who is dealing with a significantly younger recruiter, um, you can't always know in advance who's going to interview. Of course, if you can find out, that's great, because then you can prepare for that situation. But in any case, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to emphasize, if it's true, that you have worked with people in that age group before. And this, of course, goes in both directions. So perhaps your previous manager was also significantly younger or significantly older. Perhaps some of your business partners or clients that you worked with intimately were significantly older, significantly younger. Basically, you want to tell stories that show that it was fine, everybody got along nicely, there wasn't too much dating. In other words, not dating in terms of dating relationships, but in terms of dating yourself or themselves, the way with the kinds of information exchange, the expressions used or whatever. Usually the concern is going to be, and it's fair, it's understandable if someone's concerned. Yeah, we're so far apart. Is this going to work? People want to work with people that they like. And it's a lot easier to like, usually, not always, of course, everybody has examples, but it's often people look for things they have in common, and an age group is definitely something you have in common. And so you just got to be able to convince people, though, it's going to be fine. I've done this before, can do it again. I don't see any problems with that.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. So let's go back to the list here and work on the list I put together a little bit. So how about we've talked a little bit about the need to have LinkedIn. And, and the reality is a lot of us have, not everybody, but a lot of us have more than LinkedIn. Some of us may have Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, we may have blogs. I'm taking out the Tinder conversation for right now. Let's not go there. But, we're online. We have an online presence. Either we have one or we manage one. Those are two different philosophies. Jacob, how do I manage what's some good ideas for taking care of my online presence that can help me in my job search?
Well, put yourself in a recruiter's shoes. If they're going to, let's say they get your resume and they say, okay, this person sounds impressive. Let's Google their name and see what comes up. It's a very natural thing to do. So go ahead and Google yourself right now and see what comes up.
Great, Jacob. Let's tell the audience not to do that. I do not want to have 20% of our audience crying right now.
Well, don't do it right now. Not while we're having this great chat. Okay, wait until the chat's over, and then you can go ahead and Google yourself. But you absolutely must do this. There's no question about it. Again, put yourself in the recruiter's shoes. They're going to do it, so do it. Preempt it. All right, and see what comes up. And then it's a question of, okay, if you are someone who has a good online presence, then most, if not all, that comes up should be relevant to you. Google will tend to try to make things varied. In other words, if John Smith is too common a name, but let's say there's, I don't know, 10 other people with a name like yours locally. All right. So Google will try to, if someone Googles that name, they will try to give different people. They don't want to, they realize that someone could be looking for one of them and isn't necessarily looking for only one of them unless they're really, really famous. Whereas you want to stand out. You do want yourself to come up when people are Googling your name. And so that's something you have to understand by Googling yourself and say, okay, what can I do to try to get more results? So you can open a Twitter account. You can have yourself, obviously, LinkedIn. LinkedIn is always going to rank well. A YouTube channel, because YouTube is owned by Google. So if you have a YouTube channel, then that's going to rank probably on the first page for you. If you have a Quora profile, Quora ranks really, really well as well. You can set up a Wikipedia page about yourself. That's already 5 things that will rank for you. You can create a personal website. That may take some time to rank, but it will rank at some point, especially if you're adding content to your website on a regular basis, say a blog post or a video that you made or something quick. It doesn't have to be too work intensive. But yeah, those are things that you can add and slowly claim the space that people are likely to see if they Google your name, for example.
Yeah, one of the ideas that I throw out often is to go ask others to take a look at you. Ask others to look at your Facebook presence and see what you're talking about, what you're engaging on, what you're sharing. Have others go look at your YouTube channel. Have others go look at your website, your Twitter, and your Instagram. Ask other people to go look at it and then say to them, look, I want you to come back and tell me, what do you think? If I'm applying for a job, did I say or do something that was totally ridiculous that I need to fix?
Yeah. No, that's a great point. That goes back to what we were saying earlier. The intimate when people are feeling desperate, get outside opinions so that people will start to see things that you weren't necessarily seeing, that you were overlooking because of the intimacy issues. Absolutely.
Now, and Dean just dropped in chat that he needs to stop telling jokes. Dean, no, you could tell jokes, man. Just make sure the jokes you were telling are the kinds of jokes that you want the world to look at you and think of and go, hey, this guy's a decent guy. He's a funny guy. Or are there people who are going to look at your jokes and go, I don't know, man, that may not be appropriate. So keep telling good jokes though, Dean, especially dad jokes. Dad jokes are generally good. So Greg, got anything on chat or Q&A?
So this is probably a very good next question to go through that I get a lot through my leadership coaching process. Is so when you run across people who are the true introverts, who are, they go to a social event and they're stuck on the wall and you're doing everything you can to peel them off. How do you get, what advice do you have for them for getting comfortable talking to other people, trying to get better at networking?
So we're talking specifically in-person networking now, right? If you're introverted?
Correct. Yep.
Right. Yeah. So I posted on my blog a few years ago a list of conversation starters, which are really easy things to get you going. I mean, you can just walk over to someone and ask about, let's say if there was a speaker at the event, did you like the speaker? That's something you can easily ask. Probably even more basic, what brought you here today? Simple, not hard to remember. If there's something that they're wearing that you like, you can say, oh, I like that I like what you're wearing. I like this. Open with a compliment also works really, really well. Again, you don't have to overthink it. And it's a strategy that you can use again and again and again. Don't use the same compliment on every person you see, but you can look for a compliment each time. And yeah, it's a good opener.
Yeah, I'm with you, Jacob. I often tell people that who overthink it. That's the word you use. You nailed it. They overthink. How do I let them know that I'm really smart and I'm really paying attention? And it's not about you. Networking is first and foremost about the other person. And if you use a really good, friendly, open question, that really often starts the ball rolling. And once the ball gets rolling, it gets easier and easier to have a good conversation with people. So yeah, good point. So, good, Dean. Thanks for bringing it up. Hey, let's talk about something that most people probably don't think about. It's demand and market and market opportunities. If you're a COBOL programmer, there's a very small market. Still is one, but there's a very small market for COBOL programmers. If you are a document management professional managing file cabinets at a medical facility, there may be a market, but it's even smaller. So what you have to think about is what's the market for what I have? What's the demand for what I have? What are some thoughts you have on that, Greg? Excuse me, Jacob. Oh, I'll come back to Greg as well later on.
I'd actually take it a step further. I tell people that one of the first things they should do when it's time to think of another job is to go out and try to understand what is in demand in the marketplace and then see where you can fill that demand. Instead of saying, okay, where's their demand for what I've got, right? So this is so important. I'm really glad that you brought this up. It's something that people do not do enough. This is even a step before company research. People just say, okay, I am this, and that's what it's going to be. I'm whatever profession I am or whatever I was just doing. I've got to look for jobs that are based on that job title, that specific thing, and they're shutting themselves off from so many opportunities just because a recruiter calls it something else, or it's in the neighborhood over, or whatever it is. Okay. So what you really want to do, and today we've never had so many tools at our disposal that can educate us on the kind of demand there is in the marketplace. Not only that, before the pandemic, people would tend to look locally. But now, because of the pandemic, so many opportunities have opened up internationally. If you're open and available to work remotely, well, then you can just put yourself out there where there's the most demand for what you can do, wherever in the world that is, as long as people are looking for remote workers, which is, I mean, it's revolutionary if you think about it. It just takes knowing that possibility exists and then acting on it. And so how can you understand where there's strong demand for what you do or for your skills? Well, you can Google News. I mean, Google literally, there is a, what do they call it? Not the opposite of a surplus. It's a, what's the word?
Oh,
Deficit.
A shortage. There's a shortage.
Big word.
A shortage. Yeah, there's a shortage of COBOL programmers. Just, you can Google those words, or you can even Google a city name afterwards, and just see where it's been talked about in the news during the past 6 months, for example, and get an idea that way. Another place where there tends to be lots of demand for something is when a company has been funded. Okay, in other words, for example, in the startup world, a company that just was funded, they're going to have to be hiring a bunch of people. That's why they got funded, to take that money and grow and hire people. So that's a great place to look. What kinds of recently funded companies could use someone like me? Companies that just had an IPO, they're going to have an influx of cash. They're also going to be doing massive hiring. What kinds of people are they going to be looking for? You could also, this is a great way to network. It's by reaching out to people on LinkedIn who are in your industry or who are just adjacent to your industry and saying, you know, I'm going to be looking for a new job soon. What kinds of demand are you hearing for people like me in your neck of the woods, type of thing? It's a great way of opening questions. It allows people to show off their knowledge. You're not asking them for a job. You're not asking them to hire you. You're asking them for information about the marketplace. And it's also a way of saying, yeah, you know, I'm going to be looking for a job. If they happen to know something, well, then it's an easy opening. But ultimately, you want to use that information to decide where you should start looking for companies to research and then apply for.
Greg, before we go to any question you have, Don commented, you know, how can because we're an international economy, you know, how can we find the differences, and I may add opportunities that are in Western Europe, Spanish-speaking Americans, Pacific Rim, and I think you just nailed it right there. You know, just be willing to get into conversations with people who play in those sandboxes. You know, find ways to meet people no matter where they are geographically. Find the right way, meaningful and appropriate ways to meet people in different across the globe. Yeah. And you know, not unlike what you're sitting here having a conversation with 20,000 people right now, you know, out of Israel. And so, you know, you do that, you're going to discover ideas and opportunities you've never thought about.
Yeah, you should, on your job search to-do list, you should try to have at least one conversation every day, whether it's for the purposes you just described, whether it's with someone who can take a look at your job search and give you advice, whether it's someone who may know someone that you should talk to. But just you want to talk to at least one person every day, just a quick 20-minute, half an hour conversation. Having lunch with Teddy and Randy, and Greg in this case, something similar. Have lunch or have a virtual coffee with someone on a daily basis, and it'll help you feel a lot better about things, frankly.
Good stuff. So Dean wanted to know about how to build a compelling LinkedIn profile. And rather than us go into that conversation, I'm going to suggest to Dean, go look at my YouTube channel, dude. Lots of videos for you to look at on how to use LinkedIn. Go look for the LinkedIn help playlist. Because there's a lot to do. The number one answer is make sure your LinkedIn profile clearly tells the viewer who you are and what you do / want to do. That's the core essence. But go look at my YouTube channel, man. I promise you a lot of help there. So, Greg, any other questions or chat come up that you want to bring in?
I don't have any right now, so this is good.
Cool. So one more. Let's talk about one more thing.
Okay.
Jacob.
Yeah.
One mistake. Share with us one mistake and the appropriate way to overcome that mistake. Yogi Berra said, what did Yogi Berra? Yogi Berra said this recently. I got it right here.
Yeah.
He said, the problem is we made too many wrong mistakes. So what is
Those are the yogiisms. Yeah.
Those are the yogiisms, dude. There's a website. There's 20 of them on this website. So, the future ain't what it used to be is another yogiism. One mistake that we make on resumes, and what is your suggestion for not making that mistake?
All right. So the classic mistake that I see every single day is having a resume that's focused on your responsibilities at the jobs that you had, instead of focusing on your achievements, and especially the achievements that are most likely to impress the reader. So yeah, I see this all the time. People, they know to have their work history, and it's all reverse chronologically. That's perfect. But then they say, okay, this is my job title, and this is what I did. These were my responsibilities there. No, okay. In many cases, the job title is enough to say what your responsibilities were. Take the limited amount of space that you have there and use it to market yourself. Use it to impress. Talk about your biggest achievements in that position. Use numbers. I raised this amount of money. I earned this amount of money for the company. I saved this amount of money for the company. I managed this number of people. This amount of turnover was generated or saved, whatever it is, but use numbers. Numbers are so descriptive, and they really help people understand and get impressed, frankly. I mean, you increase sales. Well, that's good. I increased sales by $400 million last year. Wow. That's a lot more impressive than just saying I increased sales. But even just saying you increase sales is already something good. So yeah, focus on achievement, less on responsibility.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So cool beans. Jacob, buddy, thanks a lot for showing up. Todd, thanks for the introduction to Jacob.
Todd.
Appreciate that. Greg, thank you very much for showing up as our super sub co-host today. I think Lisa, who is the or Leslie, who is the other contender for Randy's job, and that's totally satire. I don't think if Leslie was here today. No, she's off doing something else as well. So she did not get to see you interview, buddy.
Ooh. That's okay. I appreciate the opportunity to come back again, and hopefully we can do this in the future.
Yeah, so cool beans. So Jacob, I'm going to share your LinkedIn profile URL. I'm going to share your website and some other, information for everybody. Job Mob website, Jacob Share on Twitter, Jacob Share on LinkedIn. So again, buddy, I really appreciate you. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you guys. This was great. It was a lot of fun. I hope that a lot of people get to listen to it and get to take away good lessons from it. And thanks also, Greg, did a great job, man. And Teddy, you make it so easy to talk to you.
Yeah, cool. Well,
and thanks again, Todd.
I'm practicing. We're on shows. Today is show 78, Lunch Conversations of Randy and Teddy. Randy and I have committed to number 79 and more. And so it's a lot of fun. We enjoy doing it. We enjoy our audience that shows up every week. So next week got another returning special guest. Next week we have Miss Melissa Hughes. Listen to this topic. The conversation that Lisa's going to come with us is titled "The Powerful Persuasion of Priming." Now, when I first heard that, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, what the heck does that mean?" Well, it's way more powerful than it sounds, and it's way easier than it sounds. But it would come next week and listen to this conversation about the powerful persuasion of priming. It will have an impact on your life, and it will have an impact on the way you present yourself in job search. It is absolutely going to be a great conversation. Melissa Hughes is a really smart lady, but she makes it really clear for even people who aren't so smart like myself to understand it. And I promise you it will be enjoyable. Thank you, everybody, for showing up today for Lunch Conversations with Greg and Teddy and filling in for Randy. Jacob, again, thank you very much. We will see everybody again next week. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.